Several months ago, I did a video where I talked about the reasons, well, 10 reasons specifically, why I wouldn't play 5th edition anymore. That's 2014 and 2024. And one of the reoccurring comments was, have you picked up Nimble? I don't need another high fantasy 5th edition clone. I then got talking to Bob Worldbuilder a few weeks ago, and he was going, I've got to start looking at Nimble. And I was like, we had a little bit of backwards and forwards. And I was like, I don't need a 5th edition clone. I've got other games, and more importantly, streamlined rules faster. I've got Shadow Dark. And he was like, but this is high fantasy, and it does really cool stuff. It go up to level 20. It feels like Dungeons and Dragons, but faster. And I don't think he said better. I'm not sure, because I don't want to put that on to Bob. So I picked it up. And I've had a look, and we've got 3 core rulebooks. All core rulebooks are A5 size. They come with ribbons as well. They're a variety of thickness, which kind of surprised me, because when I purchased them, they were all exactly the same price. One's got 50 pages, one's 82, the other one's 120 pages. But handy dandy small ribbon books, A5 books. Now, to spoil what's going to be coming up, because I am going to look through all 3 books like I do in my review, should I keep this when I've got Shadow Dark to cover my fast D20 need for playing and running, or should I have Nimble instead? I'm going to leave that there, and I'm just going to let's just get straight into it. And I'm going to start. I've decided, I wasn't sure where to start. I'm going to start with the core rulebook, because why wouldn't I? This is the essence of the game. This is going to take you through how to play it and the differences. Now, this promises, big promise, to be able to take a 5th edition module, current 5th edition module, and be able to convert it and play it. But it's only got 4 stats, 10 skills. There are rules coming up to sort of show you through, but let's just get into the core rulebook. I'm going to say this right from the start. As a dyslexic, this has been an absolutely fantastic set of books to read. It's really simple, incredibly well laid out, and when we get into it, you're going to see a huge amount of artwork, which is nice and distracting. So we haven't got pages and pages of text, but there's some phenomenal examples throughout all 3 of the books. So we're going to get into the core rulebook here. So it's just a little bit of who wrote it, the inspirations, the writing. So it's going to get into the content. So we've got start here, how to be a good player. Really good section, that. And I'm bad at some of those, which I'm ashamed to say. Going to get into the core rule books, all hyperlinked. We've got combat section, resting and downtime, character creation, ancestry and backgrounds, whole section of equipment. Spells divided into 6 different categories, and then some optional rules, which some of them like, some of them I don't. But the good thing about optional rules is they're an option. If you don't want them, don't pick them. This book is the 58-page core rulebook. But the reality is, most of it, I think the core rulebooks are sort of 5 and 6 pages, and then there's like a couple of pages of combat, so it's nice and easy. Let's just start with how to be a good player, how to not be me. So it's be heroic. So this is a heroic fantasy game. It is your 5th edition equivalent. Pay attention. Ask questions, take notes. I never take notes. Never take notes. I'm terrible. Be creative, embrace failure, respect everyone else's time. Turn up on time. Share the spotlight, massive. Don't keep talking over everyone. Expect to do everyone. And treat the world realistically. So there's, there are some really handy tips in there. Now we're going to get into the core rulebooks. In essence, this is a D20 rollover system. So it's just going to very much feel like 5th edition and Shadow Dark or any of those systems. But it's streamlined down into 4 key stats. Strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom. Charisma, out. Constitution, out. Okay? And whenever you're going to want to do anything, you're going to either be doing a saving throw based on your 4 key stats. From further forward going on, we're going to use the subwords key. So K, E, Y. If you see that, that is based on the equivalent stat that's going to be. And then we've got 10 skills, which has been shortened down into Arcana, Examination, Finesse, Influence, Insight, Might, Law, Naturecraft, Perception, and Stealth. And they've all got the key stat next to them in there. So it's got a little bit about skill checks, If you want an easy skill check, DC 8, goes to 12 for medium, challenging 15, very difficult 18, and extreme is 20 plus. So with these, you're going to get to add your skill plus your stat, whatever modifier, and then you go from there. Advantage and disadvantage is in the game. Oh, I should probably just quickly say we've got a couple of saves which we talked about. So we've got the strength save, dex, int, and will saves. So strength is for physical fitness and any finesse saves. Dex is agility or speed when they need to be tested to avoid explosions. Intelligence is when you're going to sort of protect yourself from tricks and illusions. And then finally we've got the will save here when you're going to resist things like charm and sort of fear effects. So if you're ever making a skill check, take the stat. So for example, a stealth check here, so you take your bonus, hopefully you're going to have a bonus in stat, your amount that you've got in stealth, add those two together, roll d20, and then if it was a very difficult check, you'd be looking to get over 18. So the highest your skill will ever go to is a plus 12 in here. We've got a variety of sizes from tiny to gargantuan. The game does, because it's a 5th edition, I'm going to say clone in a fond word, it does appear to want you to use a battle mat when you're going to be playing. Now, advantage and disadvantage does exist. So if you got something favourable, you're going to be rolling 1 extra die. And then you're going to pick the highest, well, drop off the lower one. The reason for that is quite specific. We'll come on to in a second when we get to combat. With disadvantage, you'd roll 1 extra dice and then just take out one of the higher ones. Because like you can see in this example here, sometimes when you're fighting with weapons, for example, a great axe, that might be 2d6. So if you've got advantage, you take the lower one out. But you've got 2 disadvantages because they stack. So that would be 2 extra dice. With the great axe, you're going to take out the 2 higher ones. Don't panic. I'll come on to and explain how you would roll those when we get to the combat section. No constitution stats, so how are we going to die? So hit points are going to be based on your class. That's going to give you your starting hit points. You'll get a few more as you go up in levels. But more importantly, when you get down to 0 hit points, you gain the dying condition. You're not out, you're still acting. Great idea this is. However, you've got 6 wounds. Now, once you then take your 6th wound, you're dead. Now, when you're dying, as you take more damage, you're going to take additional wounds faster. You're also only going to get 1 action, which we'll come on to. I'll remind that when we get to the combat sections. So once you get 6 wounds, you're dead and you're out. They can get things like temporary hit dice, so that will boost your hit points. And creatures are going to get hit dice, again, based on their class. So when they're recovering wounds and downtime and things, so when you're doing a short rest or a safe rest is in this one, you're going to get additional hit points back based on your hit die. Ranges, so nice to have ranges. In melee, long range. That's it. That's really, it really is that simple. We've got some rules for falling and force movement. So you can, again, I think this is the reason why it's going to want that battle mat. So as you sort of hit people and move them around, because there's lots of conditions to do that, you'll be able to move them. We've got a concentration condition as well. If a character is ever needing concentration, mostly for spells, actually you can carry spells over onto new rounds, which is really clever. But you're going to, if you are hit with a crit, then you're going to have to make a strength save to keep your concentration up. We've got the standard conditions that you would expect in here, so things like blinded, blooded is in here, which is one of my favorites. It's my carryover from 4th edition. I must say there are certain aspects in here that makes me remind me of 4th edition, blooded being one of those. And all it is once a creature gets to 50% hit points. Certain creatures, mainly the legendary creatures, will gain additional harder actions once they get blooded. But also, I use it all the time when if something's got 40 hit points, once it drops below 20, I let my players know it's blooded. So at least the players have an idea of, how they get in. Are they actually having any sort of impact or damage on the creature? But this is going to take you through things like frightened, grappled, incapacity, invisible, petrified. So anytime a spell or a class ability or a monster condition affects a player, you just come back to this page, which is page 12, and then you'll be able to see it from there. Okay, combat rules. This borrows heavily, or exactly, from Pathfinder. Well, not just Pathfinder, but the likes of Pathfinder. All players are going to get 3 actions. And you can use those, all 3 actions to attack. You can use those to hold back and do reactions. because you're going to want to, because if you don't react to incoming attacks that automatically hit, just like draw steel, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. So what can you use the actions for? So the first one is attack, and then we've got things like casting spells, moving, or access. So at the end of your turn, everyone gets their 3 actions back. Simple as that. So what can you use those 3 actions for? You can attack. So you make an attack roll. And this is where you automatically hit. So let's say your weapon's got 2d6 damage. You'll roll those 2d6 and they'll land. The left die, and then you'll add them up to do the damage. However, the left die is your primary die. If you've only got 1 die, it's only the primary die. Now, as long as that's not a 6, you hit. That's it. So there's no attack roll. You automatically hit. Which is why you might need to hold an action back, because any attack coming in is going to hit you unless someone rolls a 1 on the primary dice. But the primary dice does my favourite mechanic, mention it time and time again, exploding die. Only the primary die. So again, if you've only got 1 die, you fail on a 1, explode on the max, and it keeps exploding if you keep rolling the maximum out there. Amazing. You can cast a spell. Some spells may have 1, 2, or 3 actions, and you can carry them over from an action as well. So if you've got 1 action left and you got a 3 action spell, you can cast your spell in the first round, and then when it comes to your next turn, you can use 2 of the actions from the next turn to release the spell. Absolutely brilliant. It just allows this wonderful tactical way for the players to move. You can move or you can assess. So when it comes to attacking, you can attack as many times as you want, up to 3. However, each attack beyond the first is at disadvantage. So what the game does is it gives you this assess ability here. So you'll pick a skill with a DC 12 and you can ask a question, create an opening, which means the primary die next roll against the target goes up by 1. Anticipate danger, reduce the primary die by 1. So you can force a miss. So what it means is it stops the players just standing there going, hit, oh, disadvantage twice. So it's harder and harder to hit. It creates this tactical teamwork that allows the players to sort of help the next attack coming in or protect the next person that's going to be hit. Really, really clever. Things you can do outside of your actions become reactions. They still use an action and you can use multiple. So if you're stood at the front and you want to protect a tunnel, if that makes sense, because, you know, they're going to try and shoot over your shoulder, you can use all 3 of your actions. I don't know, I'm holding up 4 fingers. All 3 of your actions to do the defend action. And when you defend, your AC, your armor class, let's say your armor class is 10, you take 10 off the incoming damage. So they automatically hit, but your shield or your armor gets in the way. Really clever. So you can protect yourself from multiple attacks. It's going to give up actions to do so, and you might not be able to attack back. But you're generally actually standing in, tucking down with your armor, your shield to actually protect yourself. It stops that really weird. And then as you go up in levels, and then someone that you'll get an AC of 20 and you roll, miss, everyone else misses as you go around. It can be kind of frustrating. You can impose, you can do opportunity attacks. So if people are moving away from you, you can use your reaction to attack, or you can use your reaction to help out other people. Monsters, this will be covered more once we get to the amazing monster stats and stuff, but monsters don't have any armor, so if you do any damage to them, they automatically take all the damage rolled. However, certain monsters will have medium armor, which means they only take the dice roll, so you don't get to add any abilities. Some creatures also get heavy armor, which means you have that dice roll, no modifiers. Spells don't really have modifiers. So the way it plays is if you're physically attacking someone and they've got physical armor, you can reduce the damage. If you're casting a fireball on someone in physical armor, a lot of the time, most of that's going to go through because you get no bonus spell effects. It's really clever the way it works. Right, let's get into starting combat. And I love this mechanic. Combat starts, the games master will shout or say, roll initiative. So each player rolls 1d20 and adds their initiative bonus, which is typically their dex. There may be some additional modifiers there. But you then take the 10s unit. So if you get 0 to 9, in the first round only, you're going to get 1 action. If you've got from 10 to 19, you're going to get 2 actions in your first round. 20 plus, all 3 actions. The end of that round, everyone's going to get their 3 actions. So go into the second round, everyone will always get their 3 actions. Really, really brilliant. There may be a surprise where the players just all get to go first. Turn order becomes nice and simple. You pick one of the players and then just go round the table clockwise so everyone gets to go first. Then the games master goes, then everyone gets to go first. Unless there's a surprise round, the games master does all their creatures first, then the players get to go. Turns in this game take approximately 6 seconds in real game world. So we've got a couple of rest or downtime things we can do because, you know, players are going to take damage over time, because if something automatically hits, you're automatically going to take damage unless you're doing the defense action. So at the end of the combat, you've got a couple of choices. You can catch your breath, which is going to be 10 minutes. This is like a little bit like a short rest-ish, which is going to give you some hit dice back. It's where you get to roll your hit dice, going to give you some hit points back. Or you can make a camp where you have at least 8 hours sleep and food, and then you can get the maximum value for all your hit points. But you're not always going to get all your hit points back this way. The main way to get all of your hit points back, unless you have sort of consecutive sort of make camps over different days, is safe rest. This is going to put you back into a town where you're going to stay in an inn and have lodgings and things like that, and you will just get your hit points back. You've got to spend a week doing that, which then gives you a variety of different downtimes, so you can sort of use your gold to invest in business, find mentors. The lodgings you sleep in, very cleverly, will either increase or reduce the amount of hit points and stuff you get. So the more money you're willing to spend, the better night's sleep you get. I don't think I've ever seen this in a game before. It's a really, really good idea. Page 20 will just take us through character creation. So all you need to do is pick your class. There are 11 classes in the game, which I'll cover actually when we get to the heroes, because I'll go into a little bit more, but we'll just give you the titles here. They kind of feel like 5th edition, but with a little bit of changes. And you do still go all the way up to 20th level with these creatures, but you still do also go up to 20th level with these classes. So we've got the Berserker, the Unstoppable Force, the Cheat, the Sneaky sort of Thief, Rogue, Commander, Battlefield Tactician and Leader, the Hunter, the Survivalist and Bowmaster, the Mage, Wielder and Elementals of Fire, the Oathsworn, the Faithful Guardian. He's kind of like your Paladin. The Shadowmancer can summon hordes of expendable minions. The Shepherd is kind of like your Cleric in here. Songweaver feels like the Bard. Storm Shifter is more of your Elemental and Druidic type power. And then your Zephyr is the Monk. But a good monk. Finally, a 5th edition really good monk class. You're then going to choose your ancestry in your background. There are basic ancestries and some really cool, interesting additional ones. Then you're going to fill in your character sheet and you're pretty much ready to go. That's it. That's your 3 steps. So looking at the character sheet here, we've got the top left here. We're just going to show you your 6 stats in there, your hit points, temporary hit points, armor initiative, your 6 wounds. Everyone's going to get 6 wounds. You may get a few more depending on class. And then your 10 skills go across there. You've got different ways of creating your character. So from your 4th stats in here, so you can either have, look, let's just give the example of standard. You can go 2 in one, 2 in one, 0 in another, -1 in another. Now you're going to want to kind of pair that up with your class, because your class is going to give you 2 stats that it's going to expect you to have. So that's the way kind of you want to set it up. Then you're going to get a variety of skill points to spend. So you'd mark 1 next to all the ones based on the class that it's going to give you. Then you're going to get 4 additional skill points to spend wherever you like. You're then going to mark down your hit points and your hit dice, again, based on your class. The class does an awful lot. It's going to give you your starting equipment at level 1, or you can have 50 gold pieces and go and buy it yourself. Depending on your ancestry will determine your starting language, and also depending on how bright you are, because if your intelligence is below a certain level, you don't even speak your own ancestry's language, which is quite cool. From carrying capacity and slots, it's going to be 10 plus your strength. This is quite simple because most items use 1 slot. So occasionally there's a couple that use 2, and then you've got some like small things like soap and blankets that you don't really worry about. You're just going to level up as and when the games master tells you to at certain times during adventures or the campaign. When you level up, you're going to get some additional hit points. You're going to gain more endurance, which means your hit die is going to increase by 1, and you're going to get a few more skills. You're going to get new class features. You might even get a subclass once you go to, I think it's 3rd level that every class gives you a subclass. In this book, well, once we get to the Heroes Guide, there are 2 different subclasses that you're going to pick from. Let's look at the common ancestries. So we've got things like human, dwarf, elf, halfling, gnome. And now all the ancestries are, as you kind of expect, some of them have only positive abilities, let's say. Some of them may have a few positive and negative. So for example, like the human has got tenacious, got +1 to all skills and initiative, where the dwarf +2 to max hit dice, 1 +1 to max wounds, but -1 speed. And this is what I said about languages. You know dwarfish if your int is not negative. Elves are very similar things, halfling, gnomes. So that's all your common ancestries. Now, do you want something more interesting and more fun? This is gonna. So you can have like a bun, which is a small creature here, dragonborn, kobold, orc, celestial, half giant, rat folk. The only thing that isn't in here that I didn't see is centaur, but you can play a minotaur, which is always cool. But like the common ancestries, they will give you something, mostly, you know, something, an advantage. Some of them might give you a couple of advantages, then something more negative. Actually, like the turtle folk here, +4 armor, -2 speed. That's kind of, it's quite a huge amount of additional armor. So just turn your back on everyone before you eat your pizza. Backgrounds are just going to give you, well, it's probably the easiest way to explain. We'll just pick the Fey Touched. You take half damage from all magical effects, double damage from weapons made of metal before armor is applied. So again, players allow the players to pick whatever it was they want their background to be. So this is what you did before you pick your class, you become an adventurer. And finally, before we get into equipment, we're just going to pick adventuring motivation. So this is why you went adventuring in the first place. I'll let the players discover that for themselves. So when it gets to equipment, weapon proficiency is quite big in this, so you can use any weapon that you like. However, each class will have a list of weapons and armors they're most proficient with. Weapons without proficiency cannot crit. Defending while wearing armor without proficiency costs 1 additional action. So you can do it, which is quite nice, but it has going to have a bit of a game impact here. So when we look at the armor, let's just pick on leather armor here. So let's go hard leather, requires at least strength +1. So you're going to get your dex +5 to your armor. So remember, you take that defensive action, whatever your dex is, +5. If you're wearing that armor, you're going to be able to sort of block that amount of damage. The most you can get to is mithril plate. You are going to need strength +5 in here, but the armor is going to give you 22 off the damage, which is going to take huge amount of damage away from you. But remember, if you only got one reaction left, the first one, you're going to soak a lot of damage. The second one, you're taking full damage in here. Weapons are going to have a variety of properties from things like two-handed, reach, range, but different weapons. So some weapons will only have 1 die, some will have 2. Remember, leftmost die, when they land on your desk or wherever you're rolling table, whatever you land on, is always the primary one. That's the one that can explode. That's the one, if it's a 1, it's a miss. So where you got things like the great sword here, which is 3d4. So if you're doing this at advantage, you're going to roll 4d4. Left one's always primary, and then you're going to take out the lower one. Now, if the lower one is the primary one, the next left one becomes the primary. Okay, so it's always the left one that remains in play. Then got a list of ranged weapons in here. Then we've got keyed equipment for things like healing potions, lanterns, miscellaneous goods. When it comes to magical items, it splits them in between uncommon, I should say, rare, very rare, and legendary, and it sets it by levels, and it's kind of ish the tier rating. So 2 to 6 for common, 5 to 12 for rare, very rare will go for 8 to 18, and then legendary items shouldn't be given out to anyone beyond 15 to 20. Now, we've obviously got different magic items in here, different wands and scrolls. I'm not really going to focus on any of that because I've got a lot to get through because of how many books are in here. Now, once it comes to spells, I love spells that use mana. No levels. You just basically have a certain amount of mana based on your intelligence multiplied by, I think it's 5 for most of the classes, and then you might get some additional bonus. Now, each spell will cost a certain amount of mana. You can then upcast it. Now, if you want it to do additional damage and you've got the next tier open, you can do more damage, more healing, summon additional creatures. Spells are also divided into different spells, kind of schools, you could say. So fire, ice, lightning, necrotic, summoning horrible minions. They're not horrible minions. We're getting maybe the undead back. Radiant spells and wind. Now, depending on your cast and your class will determine which spells you have access to. Now, each of the schools will have 2 cantrips, which are the easiest spells to cast, and then they will have 9 from tier 1 all the way up to tier 9 spells. So let's just pick on Ignite here. So it's a tier 1 spell. It's going to take 2 actions to cast. Remember, 2 actions. So if you have used 2 reactions, you can still cast it, and it won't actually take effect to you use the one from your first, from the next action. Range of 8. So you just got to count out the range, and it's a single target. So your damage is going to do 4d10 to a smouldering target, ending the condition once hit. So, and you can upcast it for +10. You're like, ooh, okay, we haven't got a smouldering target. Where do we get a smouldering target from? So we're then going to look at Flame Dart Cantrip. So that's going to do a d10 damage on crit. They're going to get the smouldering condition. So what this is going to do is there are certain things and other spells as well that you can do to cause smolder, and all the spells have this where you will be able to do a combination of spells, quite often based on a cantrip, and move it into a tier spell to do something addition, to sort of combine it. It's that, you know, that I think I talk about on other videos where you've sort of doing a combination as a spellcaster and actually pulling it off feels really, really good. And then we get the odd bits of this. So we've got like the Songweaver only. So there will be an additional cantrip here. So Vicious Mockery in here. So there are 6 schools here. So Radiant spells, this is going to give you more access to your things like healing and stuff. So Necrotic spell. So I'm just going to pick Vampiric Greed. So it's a tier 3 spell. 2 actions, area of effect. So gain 1 wound. Always good to heal yourself. 4d12 to all adjacent creatures, that's all, including your friends, and heal HP equal to the damage done. Any surviving creatures make a strength save, gain 1 additional wound for each creature that saves. And then you can upcast it to make that save even more difficult. So you're not going to do any external damage on that, but so this is the flexibility of having mana and upcasting. So the players can do what they want with the mana they've got. You know, do you want to get into a combat and do one massive spell and try and do as much damage, eradicate as many people around the table, or control as many as you can? Or do you want to do it multiple times over multiple actions? Because you're not going to get it back as quick as you will do within other games. Then we've got a few additional utility spells in here, all of which are cantrips, and depending on, and say these are more class dependent as well. Then we've got the optional rules, so you can do things like multi-classing. I wouldn't allow multi-classing initially. Dealing with small groups, large groups, you know, fast resting if you want to make it a more sort of 5th edition experience, you know, if you want to throw potions and stuff. When it comes to combat, this is what I was saying about sort of measuring spaces in here. So you've got different types, the 3 different types of diagonal. So you've got diagonal adjacent, where you can just go across the 3, or diagonals not adjacent, which will then take you 6 to get there, or every other adjacent. So this will depend on, again, different types of spells, weapons, equipment, monster attacks and stuff. Showing you how reach works, the cones, and line of sight. And then finally, we've got the glossary at the back. So that's your rules. 58 pages of condensed, concise, really simple rules to sort of keep on top of. Right, we now need to look at the heroes, because we've sort of seen how we create a character, but the one thing we're missing is class, is how does the class affect everything for the players. So again, game design, art direction by Evan, and then we've got a variety of different editors, special thanks and stuff over on the left-hand page. Now, the rest of this book is players only, okay? So this is going to take you through all 11 of your classes, give you all your starting abilities. It will then, by level, show you what the players are going to get. It will then take you through to the subclasses, and each class has specific features, feats, or powers that I really, really appreciate. Also, what we're going to see is the class complexity, and this goes from 1 to 3. So if we want to go with the cheat or the thief class here, it's only going to be 1. But if we're going to pick something like the mage, because obviously they're going to have multiple spells, as time goes on, they will have a complexity of 3. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sort of show you, read through all the classes, because we'll be here all day. But let's start with the Berserker here. Each has got an amazing piece of artwork, but if you're not sure what the class does, a little bit of text here, but these 3 lines will show you, or the players, what the class does. So become a raging damage dealing machine. Increase your damage to unbelievable levels. Use your savage arsenal. Okay, do you want to do that? Then you should go down the Berserker class. So if we are going to be a berserker, we're going to get the key stats, strength and dex. Those are the two that you should try and probably put your +2s in. A d12 hit dice, and then starting with 20 hit points. Strength, saves is a plus. Int saves is a minus. That basically means any strength-based saves are at advantage. Intelligence saves, disadvantage. Everything else, just roll normal. You're going to get no armor. All weapons with a strength, and then starting equipment, you're going to get a battle axe, some rations, and some rope. Now, at each level, you're going to start off, well, all the players will start off with the level 1 ability. So for this, they're going to get rage, so they roll a fury die, and then is that all you've got? So when attacked, you may expend 1 or more fury die to reduce damage taken by strength plus dex for each die spent. And as they level up, they're going to get more and more of these fury die. Now, once you get to level 3, you're going to get a subclass. And when you get to level 4, they're going to get to pick from their savage arsenal. They're going to get other things as time goes on, increased stats, primary stats and stuff. But all the classes are going to have this. So savage arsenal here for the berserker specifically. So these are specific powers, feats, features, whatever you want to call them, that only the berserker is going to get. And every few levels you're going to get to pick something, so you can really personalize the character, which means if several players want to play the berserker, they can be different. You can pick different arsenals, but also you've got a subclass. At level 3, you're going to pick some new subclasses. So do you want to go down the path of the mountain heart, which is going to be a stronger, more resilient one? They become a little bit unbreakable. Or do you want to go down the shadow of the red mist, that are going to be more about sort of unstoppable frenzies? They're going to sort of go down the frenzy point of view. And each class is going to get this. So the cheat, you can change the dice to whatever number suits you the best. You can sneak and backstab, fight dirty. So that's going to feel like the rogue. Less starting hit points, smaller hit die to start with. But like the rest of them, at level 3, they're going to pick their subclasses. And at level 4, they're going to get their underhanded abilities. So here's there again, underhanded abilities, 2 different subclasses. So the commander is going to be all about tactical commands, weapon mastery, and strategic leadership. The hunter, relentless tracker, master of the wild, so they're always good at hunting, out in the wild, and deadly from afar or up close. Whenever you're raining arrows from distance or closing in for personal takedown, the prey won't escape you. The mage, the spell shaper, so they can customize the spells even further. They can do elemental mastery, so they're good with the elemental spells. Or chaos or control. Will you snatch control from the frayed tapestry of mana or lean into the forces of chaos? So they're going to get to pick and choose and manipulate the spells a little bit more, which is their spell shaper ability here. It's going to cost a little bit of mana, but this is like their feats or features. And then you can either go down the invoker of control or the evoker of chaos. The Oathsworn, which is effectively your paladin class, they're going to defend with devotion so they can shield their allies from harm, channel the righteous judgments. Divinity, a protection, so stand as a bastion of defense, or they can shine as a beacon of virtue. I say or, I mean and. And when they get to 4th level, they're going to have all these sacred decrees in here that's going to give them additional courage, improve the size or how often and different auras they're going to get. And then they can go down the Oath of Vengeance, which means when they take wounds, they're going to be able to do more on the judgment die, or the Oath of Refuge, which is all going to be about more protecting characters and the players. So then get the Shadowmancer. So unspeakable power awaits. Use your cunning to forge the pact with the ancient, unfathomable entities. So it's kind of like your warlock-ish character. Summon demons. So this is more, it's actually more akin to the Warcraft warlock that's going to get the little creatures and minions that are going to fight alongside. And then we get the Shepherd, which is effectively your cleric in here, which is going to deal with the balances of life and death. And they're also going to get a companion as well that is going to get better and, increase as they go on. But this is going to be your main healing aspect. So it's not like 5th edition where everyone's going to get healing either. Now, the Bard is the charismatic ones because there's no charisma skill in here. So how does it deal with charisma? Doesn't deal with it directly. What it does is going to give the Bard a load of special abilities that can use its weapons and songcraft and stuff to help inspire characters to woo people over. So you come over to the side. Stormshifter is the druid, so they obviously get the shape-shifting abilities, and depending on which way you want to go will determine the dire beast form that you can pick from, and you get a choice. So you obviously can go for the technically the bear, the wolf, or a little tiny sort of spider type creature. Then finally, I say the Zephyr, which is the monk class. Really appreciate the fact that this is a monk that I'd want to play, because I wasn't a fan of, let's just be honest, the 5th edition monk. I just didn't feel it worked very well. It wasn't very powerful in here. But yeah, this is a really good monk class, well, Zephyr class. And then the next 4 subclasses we get are, and there's a load of more of these on the website that has been created. But these are certain stages in the story, something may happen. So, all the party but one may die. You may rescue something that doesn't want to leave the party. But for example, the Oathsworn may become the Oath Breaker. So, Dark Paladin, effectively. So, again, you still pick the Oathsworn class and you carry on through as you level up. But what this will do is directly replace at level 3, 7, 11 and 15 different abilities and powers. And then we've got a Spellblade here, which is going to change the commander class. The Shadowmancer will become a Reaver, and the Hunter could become a Beastmaster. And that's it. That is the 84-page hero handbook. So finally, we're now going to look at the Games Master's Guide. Now, obviously, should I say that players shouldn't probably watch this one? I don't think there's going to be too many spoilers. Unless you've got an eidetic memory, there's not going to be a huge amount of stuff in here that is going to spoil it, because what I'm not going to do is spoil the back of the book, which is all the adventures and the game world that comes in here, because I can't believe, I was really surprised to see there was a game world and a load of adventures in here. And I think you probably won't remember the stat blocks because there's a lot of them. So I think if you're a player, you're pretty good to stay in here. But now we're back with the contents here. So Advanced Games Master's Tool, Adventuring Rewards, how to give them out and not over give too much to the players. We're then going to how monster stats work in creating encounters. Then we're going to get into the bestiary itself, which is divided by sort of creature and section. The legendary monsters, which is utterly amazing. Then the rest of the book is adventures, which is, so you've got a level 1 adventure, a level 2 adventure, and a level 3 adventure. And then you've got a map of a world, and then different areas in that world and adventures based on that. So we'll touch on it, but I don't want to sort of put too much in. But this is your hint and tip here for starting as a Games Master, because one of the most intimidating things that anyone wants to do in this hobby is become a Games Master. And this is actually a really good section. This will teach you through. So obviously familiarize yourself with the core rules, get some friends together, and don't expect to remember all the rules perfectly. I don't think it can be any simpler than that. That's 3 concise rules. And then we get 3 proper rules in here. So when in doubt, rule in favor of the heroes. So if you're not sure of a rule, it's basically saying, don't spend your time looking through the core rule book. For that session only, give the player the advantage, let them probably succeed at it, unless it's completely something that's game breaking. And then look through the rule book and then start the next session. Go, when we went through this, Jeff, just to let you know, this is how it should have worked, and change it from there. Let players do cool things. So it's not the Games Master's place to stop people doing things, keep saying no and things like that. Just try and encourage the players to do whatever they want to do. He said, it talks about give more. And then finally, be honest and trustworthy. And then rule 3, be honest and trustworthy. Roll in the open. Even if you're not cheating. I'm a massive fan of rolling open, I do think. But you must telegraph danger. If you randomly roll or you put an encounter in that the players they should run away from, really overemphasize the fact that the players don't make them roll to see if they know what the creature is. Let them know that they should be running away. And if they stay there, then, well, trying to encourage them to move on. But actually, this book has got this sort of TPK save mechanic that's really quite cool. But some hints and tips before we get into that about, cutscenes, using flashbacks, foreshadowing, imminent danger and stuff that's coming up. Now, if you want to create a heroic, well, you want your players to create heroic backstories, we've got some 3 examples there on how you can work with your players to get those backstories. We've got hints, tips now, how to make your own adventure. So problems, not solutions. So as a Games Master, your role is to put a river there, not, tell them that they could build a bridge. It's up to the players to go and work out. They can cut down trees or take, the blocks or bricks around, or remind a player that they have telekinesis or whatever it may be. It says roughly 1 to 2 combat encounters per hour of play is quite typical. And the good thing is that's reasonable. You can achieve that in this because combat does fly around and come very fast. Just going to pause here and look at the amazing artwork of Justin Gerard, whose art is throughout all of these books in here. Obviously, there's more to role playing than fighting and solving problems. There's also places to explore, so have them going out looking for dungeons and things. But if you're going to do that, make sure there is plenty of traps and challenges, and you've got loads of lore around the world. Also give them compelling treasure to want to seek and to actually go and find out when they've got it. Love these couple of pages. So these are just guides of things not to do as a games master. For example, don't punish curiosity, bravery, or creativity. Don't roll too often because you don't need to roll all the time. Be brief, not stingy. And finally, and most importantly, the reminder again is do not cheat. You don't need to cheat in here. Here is your safety mechanic, let's say, if you accidentally TPK the party. And it's actually a really interesting way of dealing with it, which I quite like. Now, it says don't cheat, but you can have secrets. And now, this page here talks about some secret spells that are very powerful that the players can discover over time. So don't give it away. Let them go and earn it. Details of gold and approximately how much gold they should have and you should be rewarding. Lodging boons. Remember we talked about lodgings earlier, and if you stay in different places, you're going to get better rewards depending on what you spend. Lodging boons. So if the players aren't too stingy with the lodgings and they want to get a staying somewhere better, like we talked about earlier, depending on how much they spend, you can then go and roll on a D8 table here to go and sort of determine what they're going to get. And then finally we've got depending on the how much money they spend, they can have either a minor, major, or an epic boon. When it comes to monsters, this is a really nice streamlined part. I say streamlined, everything is streamlined. I should say efficient. Everything is so efficient in this. I probably put that in right at the end, but we've already talked about the monster armor. So monsters don't wear armor, and the games master should describe it to them. However, if they have got medium or heavy armor, let the players know they are wearing armor, because they don't let them be surprised once they go to hit something and they go, oh yeah, this is in heavy armor. It's a little bit unfair to play it that way. But when it comes to monster stats, all creatures should have a movement of 6 and be medium size and unarmored unless otherwise specified. So we can just have a look at an example here. So here's a goblin. So it's a level of 3rd and small. It's got 15 hit points, as you can see here, because it's got that little heart. If they've got any armor, they will have this shield and it'll be written next to it. And if they've got additional speed, be it a fly, burrow speed, it'll be in there. And then they'll have some special ability, and then their attack. Remember, there's no attack to roll. They're just automatically going to hit. Roll it open. If you get a 1 on the left-hand die, it's going to be a miss. Roll the max. It still explodes for them as well. We've got a few different two different types of creatures. We've got flunkies and minions. Flunkies are like regular monsters, but they can't crit, so that die isn't going to explode. Or minions, they don't have any hit points. They'll have multiple attacks, so they can swarm around them. But any damage they're going to do, you're just going to instantly kill one of those minions. The next couple of pages talks about combat encounter guidelines and fine-tuning the difficulty. Now, this is going to help you as the games master to make balanced encounters. Don't worry, I know I say this on other videos, I'm not a massive fan of balanced encounters. This is a heroic game, so you're going to kind of want an element of balanced encounters. Now, I know I talk about on other videos that I'm not a massive fan of constant balanced encounters, so don't worry, it's got the rules in here if you want to increase or decrease the difficulty of the balanced encounters. This is one of my favourite sections in all books across all times. And this is unique encounters, and I think more books should make, well, I don't need to now because I've got it in a book, but this is how to make combat more interesting for a games master, because too many people make battle maps that aren't interesting or are stagnant and nothing really changes. But this is going to talk about, do you want to make a capture the flag there, have some sort of betrayal going in, pitch black, so monsters, monsters that can attack in the dark, make the room dark for the players so they can't see. Tight quarters, so really, really enclosed fighting, which is going to take out that hunter that isn't going to have the ability to just hide at the back. It's just, change them around. Use these to make your combat encounters a little bit more interesting. Here's your monster build. So if you want to build a creature pretty much from static how you're just going to create it, and it's going to give you the amount of hit points, damage, the attacks and saves it's going to do. And then you've got some abilities here and how it is going to change the levels as well, because there are certain abilities that if you give to creatures, they will go, it might go from level 2 to level 3, for example. So as we get into the bestiary, more art by Justin Gerard here. There's going to be divided up. So we've got kobolds here. We've got a minion, a standard, a sneak, a clanger, a trapper, a den warden, and we've got some random encounter tables and then some loot. So let's pick on the mimic, which is an ambusher. Mimics always start first, and heroes roll initiative with a disadvantage. Okay. So they're going to get even less attacks on their first round. That's quite mean, isn't it? Should we just pick the small mimic here? It's level 2. 41 hit points. It's got a backpack, a shield weapon, a chair, crate, and a strump. Creatures you'll find in hills and fields here, so things like gnolls, wargs, trolls, hill giants. We've got some undead in here. We've got forest denizens, including a basilisk and a druid. Then we've got cultists and horrors in here. Finally, underground. So I'm just going to pick on Umber Hulk, because I think maybe several of us have encountered Umber Hulks before, and they can be quite troublesome. Level 10 creature, and it's large. So it's got heavy armor, so it's going to reduce an awful lot of the incoming damage. 70 hit points. So confounding pheromones. Enemies must make a DC 15 will save at the start of their turn, or confuse this turn. So we obviously need to go and look at what confuse does. Gain 1 advantage on the save for each failure in this encounter. And it's going to get 2 mandible and claw attacks, which is going to do a D10 plus 10 damage. Actually, good news is it gives us what confuses here. The GM spends your next action. Wow. So you could hit whoever you want. Now, legendary creatures so they work differently. So remember when we went into combat, players go first, then all the creatures go first. Only legendary monsters act after each hero in turn. So if you've got 3 members of the party, the legendary monster is going to get 3 attacks. Well, 3 actions. If you've got 6, it's going to get 6 actions. So it's going to scale. They also are going to get saves. They get the bloody condition. So once they get to half hit points, they're going to do some additional things and actions. And they gain the last stand. So when reduced to 0 hit points, legendary monsters are dying and they gain some dangerous new abilities. I'm not going to go through any of these. I'm going to just show you the artwork. They go from tier 2 all the way up to tier 20, but you can just see how utterly amazing and quite frightening some of these creatures actually are. And I love the fact they're actually named. So they are obviously, it's not a legendary creature as in a legendary creature type. It's a legendary specific creature that's in that world. Now, the rest of the book is adventures. So we're halfway through the book, and this is all adventures. Now, the first adventure that we're going to get is a sort of the Tiny Rescue, which is a Garden of Death, which is going to give you an idea of what's going on, the quest, some additional information, and ways to change it if you want. This is a 2-page adventure that should be done pretty much in 1 session. We'll then take the players to the Goblin and the Crystal Crag, which is a sort of 3-page level 2 adventure, and then finally we get a level 3 adventure, which I think is about 5 or 6 pages, and then it talks about leveling and adventuring on. So I'm just going to scroll onto this map and just explain what this does that I don't think I've ever seen in any of the games, because it's a starting level mini campaign, because it's levels 1, 2 and 3. One's a little one shot, second one's a couple of sessions, the third one's probably 3 or 4 sessions it's going to kind of take you to play through. But it's also going to teach you all the rules. So it is a starter set that's going to take you through the rules, skill checks, how combats work, and leave all the players then at 3rd level, which then means they are here in the Valley of Hope. Now, as you can see on the map, we have got Iceforge Mountains, Outerwild, Skyreach Isles, Far Hope, the Crowling Marches, Merivale here, Shadow Blight, and then the Withering Dunes. Now, the rest of the book is going to take you through. So here we got the Valley of Hope. It's going to give you a little bit of interest. Points of interest. This is your campaign setting. I was so surprised and amazingly pleased to see a campaign setting that's going to start the players off in Merivale. They're going to then, they go to Far Hope, where they go. Each of the areas then we'll have like this. So we've got the Vermin's Vengeance in Far Hope, which is a venomous urban adventure for level 3 heroes. I'm going to kind of want to speed all this on. So another area, we've got level 3 Wuthering Dunes. It's going to get level 5. Ironforge Mountains is going to take you back to level 4. Skyreach Isles has got a, detail level 4. Growling Marches, it's going to give sort of level 4 encounters. And then Shadow Blight, which is really heading towards the end game, because that's going to give you a level 14 adventure. The book is going to end then on a conversion. So if you want to take 5th edition characters or adventures, this is just going to take you through how you convert the adventures, the NPCs, and the spells and such like. We then look at the Appendix of Inspiration, which is, some of it is role-playing games, some of it is podcasts and things that you can go and watch or listen to. There's some section here for creators, so there's a free creators kit, as well as the open game license. There's some more stuff here on the Nimble RPG website, so that these are new races, classes, as well as some adventures as well that are on there. And then finally, we've got this chaos table. So there'll be times in the game where it'll ask you to roll on the chaos table. So that's it. That brings me to the end of my review of the 3 books for Nimble. I was so surprised to see a whole world book in the Games Master's Guide. I was just, it's 3 books. How do I review these? I kind of said from the outset, and I'm just going to keep this bit brief. This can easily exist in my collection in addition to Shadow Dark, because it's not a completely different beast. I've got to be careful just how far I go with that. But from a play point of view and a Games Master point of view, it plays different. Firstly, obviously, it goes up to level 20, so the characters have got more tiers and more powerful, but the characters are significantly more heroic and powerful, which then in turn means the monsters and the creatures that I as a Games Master get to play with my players and sort of get them to encounter is a lot, I don't want to say a lot more fun, it's a lot more of a different experience, because heroic fantasy has its place. I've been completely put off, not with heroic fantasy as now I'm starting to discover. I think it was the rule set, and this is probably why Nimble is just climbing up everyone's sort of top lists, because it takes in essence what's a good rule set, but once you've played something else, you start looking back at 5th edition and go, okay, that is slow. Because if you don't know any different, everyone enjoys it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy 5th edition if that's what you do. I always say this on this channel, play the game you love. If you don't like certain rules, homebrew, whatever it is you want to do. But I've avoided Nimble for a long time because, in my head, it was just a shortened, quicker version of 5th edition. And in essence, it is, but it's so much better than that sounds. Because to me, that doesn't sound like much of a compliment. That sounds like the same bloat and issues, just you can have fighting a little bit quicker. But you don't do that with this. From a Games Master point of view, the monster stats are so much easier to read. As you could see, there's so much flavour and stuff in the description, even for the kobolds, of what they do and how they act. There's 1 or 2 little abilities that they will do. I remember looking at stat blocks for 5th edition creatures, and it's just words. There's a lot. Word salad is probably the best way to describe it, because there's lots and lots in there that doesn't need to be in there. Throughout the whole book, all 3 books are concise, easy to read, but the rules themselves, when I looked at it, 4-5 pages. Combat rules, 3 or 4 pages. You're always hitting, unless you roll a 1 on your primary die. Which one's your primary die? Always the one on the left. It can't be easier than that. Do you want to take damage? No. Then hold some actions back. All the players work at the same time, other than that surprise action, which means tactically they've got to think as a team. They've got to work as a unit. This is everything. And I keep seeing this. People saying this is what we think 2024's 5.5 should have been. I don't think 5.5 should have been this. It was never going to be this. It's a completely different beast. If you like 2024's D&D, play that 5th edition. Just play that. If you want something quicker, faster, more streamlined, in my opinion, considerably more fun. I'm really now, because it's quite light, but it's still got quite a bit of depth to it, because you know you've got a lot of conditions in there. The spells, the character classes are quite complex as you go up in level. It does remind me, actually, one thing that I did, and a lot of character sheets do this. There's not a lot of space if you're a magic user to put all your spells in, and dealing with charisma checks is a little bit, you know, you've got to talk your way through, which I think some people may or may not enjoy. Obviously, you know, unless you get that bard class in there that is very good at that, which is, as you imagine. But one of the things I asked right at the start is, so I avoided this because of Shadow Dark. I don't need this because I have Shadow Dark. I need both. They are different parts of the same pie. They're still a D20, they're a rollover system, they're relatively rule-light, they're both quick in combat, but one gives me that old school feel with a little bit of modern mechanics. And this one gives me that amazing feel of heroic fantasy in a time frame I'm actually going to want to get to the table. Now, here's the interesting thing for me. 2025 was all about Shadow Dark. In my world, it kind of exploded into my world. I now want to see where this goes. I've got to get it through into my groups, because my group of players are very heroic players. They do like 5th edition. We've played it for a long time, but they got sick to death of the bloat and the system. I think once I throw Nimble in front, and specifically, well, actually, I think my Tuesday and the Sunday group, which are mostly the same players other than a couple of people in that, I think they're going to absolutely love this. And I'm just going to sit back as a games master going, oh, I don't know, because, you know, they're the one group where they like Shadow Dark, but it didn't overly shine with them because they want heroism. They want more balanced encounters, because obviously Shadow Dark can be a little bit swingy. This isn't meant to be a comparison. And I've always struggled with a rules like, because like the Borg systems and stuff, it's not, they like Pirate Borg, but it's hard to get that to the table. This is going to be the interesting one for me. If Nimble becomes my go-to game with my sort of best friends that I've been playing games for 35 years on, I think because of the experience this has given me playing it solo, I think this is going to start rising very, very fast through my top games. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know down in the comments below. Have you played Nimble? Have you enjoyed this video? Let me know if you've got any questions about it. Let me know. I'll be back soon. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.